My name is Emily, I'm 28 years old, and I want to tell you how my life completely changed after I got married. Before tying the knot, I had so many dreams. Finding my perfect partner, living a life full of love, laughter, and companionship. And for a while, I truly believed I had found it. It all began 3 years ago when I met Ryan. He seemed like everything I had ever hoped for, tall, charming, and with a smile that lit up any space he walked into. We first saw each other at a mutual friend's wedding, and honestly, it felt like something out of a romantic film. I still remember that moment clearly. Him looking at me from across the room like no one else existed. He walked over with confidence but spoke gently. "Hi, I'm Ryan. And you are, without a doubt, the most beautiful woman I've seen tonight." I laughed awkwardly, unsure how to respond, but he continued to talk, asking me questions, sharing stories, and making me laugh with his quirky jokes. By the end of the night, we were slow dancing under glowing fairy lights, and I felt something I had never felt before, a real, deep connection. After that evening, we started spending more time together. We'd go for drives that lasted hours, have cozy picnics, and share our deepest thoughts and fears. He told me stories from his childhood, surprised me with small, sweet gestures like handwritten notes or flowers, and always found ways to show how much he cared. About a year into our relationship, Ryan took me to the beach one evening. The sunset painted the sky in pink and orange hues as we walked barefoot along the sand. Then out of nowhere he stopped, dropped to one knee, and pulled out a small box. My heart was pounding. "Emily," he said with emotion in his eyes, "you're my everything. I don't want to spend a single day without you. Will you marry me?" Tears streamed down my face as I whispered yes. He slipped the ring onto my finger, and we kissed as the waves rolled in behind us. It felt unreal, like a dream. Our wedding day was beautiful. My family loved Ryan, and his family embraced me warmly. We got married in a garden surrounded by flowers and string lights. I wore a lace gown, and he looked at me like I was the only person in the world. Our first dance was to Perfect by Ed Sheeran, and he leaned in close and whispered, "I'll love you forever." And I believed him with all my heart. The early days of our marriage felt like a continuation of the dream. We moved into a small, cozy home just outside of town. We cooked dinner together, binge-watched shows, and imagined our future. Every morning, he kissed my forehead before heading off to work, and every evening he returned with a smile, until things started to shift. It began subtly. Ryan would come home tired and withdrawn. He didn't talk as much, and he didn't laugh the way he used to. I assumed it was just the pressures of work. But slowly, his mood started to change. He'd get irritated over small things, if dinner wasn't ready on time, or if I asked about his day. One evening, he shouted at me for dropping a glass, his voice so loud and harsh I barely recognized him. I apologized, shaking, but he stormed out and didn't return for hours. As time went on, his behavior became more unpredictable. One night, I woke up to find the bed empty. I searched everywhere and finally found him on the roof, staring up at the sky. I called out, frightened, "Ryan, what are you doing up here?" He turned slowly, eyes wide and strange. "Can't you hear them, Emily? The voices, they won't stop." I froze. Voices? What was he talking about? That was the moment I understood. This wasn't just stress. Something far more serious was going on. "Come inside," I said softly, not wanting to alarm him. "It's cold. Let's just talk, okay? I'm here for you." He hesitated but eventually nodded and came down. I made him tea, and we sat in silence. He clutched the mug tightly, staring into it as if searching for answers. "Ryan," I asked gently, "is everything okay? Please talk to me. Whatever it is, we'll face it together." For a second, I thought he'd open up. But then he smiled weakly and said, "I'm fine, Emily. Just a rough day." In the weeks that followed, things got worse. He started waking up in the middle of the night, pacing the floor and muttering under his breath. Sometimes I'd find him sitting in the dark, eyes fixed on nothing. When I tried to reach out, he'd either push me away or explode in frustration. One day, I asked what was really bothering him, and he shouted, "Why can't you just leave me alone?" slamming the door behind him. It wasn't just anger anymore. It was fear. I could see it in his eyes. He looked like a man being chased by demons no one else could see. Then came the breaking point. I was cooking dinner when I heard glass shatter in the living room. I rushed in to find Ryan standing in front of a broken mirror, his fists bloody. "Ryan!" I cried, panicking, rushing to his side. He looked at me with tear-filled eyes and whispered, "They won't stop, Emily, the voices, they're always there. I can't take it anymore." That night, after he had fallen asleep, I lay in bed, unable to stop crying. My mind replayed everything I had missed, the signs, the outbursts, the silence. He had been fighting this battle alone. I couldn't pretend anymore. He needed help. We both did. But I didn't know where to start. The next morning I called Rachel, Ryan's sister, the only person he'd ever seemed close to. I didn't know what to say at first, but my voice trembled as I told her, "I think something's really wrong with Ryan." And I hoped she could help me understand what I had never seen coming. My voice trembled as I spoke into the phone. "Rachel, I think something's seriously wrong with Ryan. He's been distant, angry, and lately, he says he hears voices." There was a long pause before Rachel responded, her voice low and serious. "Emily, there's something you need to know." She went on to explain that Ryan had been diagnosed with severe schizophrenia in his early 20s. For years, he'd been undergoing treatment and staying on medication. But just a few months before our wedding, he stopped taking his meds, convinced he no longer needed them. "He didn't tell you," Rachel said, "because he was afraid you might not go through with the marriage. He thought he was protecting you." I was in shock. How could he hide something so significant from me? But as the initial wave of disbelief faded, I realized one thing clearly: I loved him. And love, real love, doesn't walk away. That evening, I sat down with Ryan and gently told him what Rachel had shared. At first, he denied everything, insisting he was fine. But when I told him I could see the pain he was carrying, he broke down. Through his tears, he said, "I didn't want you to see me like this. I thought I could manage it on my own. I just wanted to be normal for you." I held him tightly as he cried, my heart breaking for him. "You don't have to face this alone," I whispered. "I'm here, and I'm not going anywhere. But we need to get you the help you need." Convincing Ryan to see a doctor wasn't easy. He was terrified of judgment, of being labeled. But after weeks of encouragement, he finally agreed. The doctor confirmed what Rachel had told me: his schizophrenia had returned. Medication was necessary again, and therapy was highly recommended to help him manage the episodes. The path forward was anything but smooth. Some days, Ryan refused his meds, complaining they made him feel numb and disconnected. Other days, he'd lash out in frustration, overwhelmed by it all. But through it all, I stayed. Despite everything, we still had moments that reminded me of the man I fell in love with. Like the day he surprised me with a drawing of the two of us during a picnic in the park. Or the quiet nights we stayed up talking about our dreams, laughing and holding each other close. One evening, as we sat together watching the sunset, he turned to me and said, "Thank you for not giving up on me, Emily." I smiled, tears in my eyes, and replied, "I made a promise to love you in sickness and in health. And I meant it." But as time passed, things grew harder. His mood swings became more intense, and therapy didn't seem to be helping much. The man I had married would disappear for days at a time, replaced by someone angry, unpredictable, and sometimes even frightening. The yelling became constant, often sparked by the smallest things. One night, after a minor disagreement, he slammed his fist on the table, shouting, "Why do you always make me feel like I'm not good enough?" I stood frozen, tears streaming down my cheeks. "I'm trying to help you," I said, my voice breaking. "Why can't you see that?" But my words only seemed to push him further away. He stormed out, and I was left alone in the heavy silence. The next morning, I called my parents and told them everything. My mother listened quietly, then said, "Emily, I know you love him, but love shouldn't leave you feeling broken. You've given so much, maybe too much. It's time to think about yourself too." Her words hit me like a wave. For so long, I had been focused entirely on Ryan, forgetting about my own well-being. I was drained, emotionally, mentally, physically. I had been tiptoeing around him, constantly afraid of what might set him off. That night, I sat in our bedroom, staring at our wedding photo. I thought about our vows, to stand by each other in good times and bad. But how do you hold on to those vows when the person you love no longer shows you love in return? I remembered the woman I used to be. Hopeful, confident, full of dreams. I couldn't even recognize her anymore. And for the first time, I allowed myself to ask the question I had avoided for so long. Is this really the life I want? The next day, I asked Ryan to sit with me. He looked tired and distant. My hands trembled, but I spoke from my heart. I love you, Ryan. I always have. But I can't keep living like this. I'm exhausted, and I feel like I've completely lost myself. His expression darkened with sadness and a flicker of anger. So what, you're just giving up on me? I shook my head. No, I'm not giving up on you. But I can't save you. Only you can do that now. It was the hardest thing I've ever said. But it was the truth. Leaving was the hardest choice I ever had to make, but deep down I knew it was the only way to save myself. And that wasn't something Ryan could do for me. The weeks that followed were filled with endless paperwork, meetings with lawyers, and more tears than I could count. Ryan pleaded with me not to go. He made promises, told me he would change, swore things would be different. But I had heard those words too many times before. I told him quietly, I'm not leaving because I stopped loving you. I'm leaving because I've finally learned to love myself enough to walk away. After our divorce, I moved back in with my parents. It felt like a setback, a personal failure, not just as a partner, but as a person. But with time, something began to shift. I started to heal. Therapy helped me unpack the emotional weight I had been carrying for so long. Slowly, I began reconnecting with the parts of myself I had lost in the chaos of that relationship. I picked up painting again, something I had loved before but had abandoned. I reconnected with friends I had drifted away from and, piece by piece, began to rebuild my confidence. 2 years later, I was no longer the same woman who walked away from that marriage. I was stronger, wiser, and more grounded. One bright afternoon, I was sitting at a cafe when a man approached me. He had gentle eyes and a kind smile. Hi, he said. I noticed you from across the room. Would you mind if I sat down? I hesitated briefly, then nodded. Sure. We ended up talking for hours, and in that conversation, something stirred inside me, something I hadn't felt in a long time. It was hope. Looking back now, I see that my relationship with Ryan, though incredibly painful, was also one of the most defining chapters of my life. It taught me what love truly is, not just the kind you give to someone else, but the kind you give to yourself. I don't hold anger toward Ryan. He was dealing with struggles I couldn't fully understand. I genuinely hope he finds peace. But I've learned that loving someone doesn't always mean holding on. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is let go. Life doesn't always turn out the way we dream it will, but somehow, it leads us exactly where we need to be. For me, that meant finding the courage to walk away from a relationship that was hurting me and starting fresh, even when it was terrifying. Now, as I embrace this new chapter of my life, I carry with me one of the most powerful lessons I've ever learned. What looks perfect on the outside isn't always real. But what is real, the truth, the honesty, the love you give yourself, is always worth fighting for. Emily's story leaves behind 2 essential messages for anyone considering a future with someone else. The first is about thoughtfulness. When emotions run high and everything feels magical at the start of a relationship, it's easy to be swept away. But love, while powerful, isn't enough on its own. Building a life together requires more than chemistry. It needs shared values, mutual respect, and the ability to navigate difficulties with empathy and understanding. She realized too late that she had rushed into marriage without truly knowing if they were compatible beyond the romance. She hadn't taken the time to ask difficult questions, or notice the red flags waving in front of her. It's important to enter such commitments with not just emotion, but clarity. The second lesson is just as important. People aren't always what they seem. Ryan appeared caring, charming, and attentive. But behind the surface, he was wrestling with internal struggles that only came to light after their vows had been exchanged. That doesn't mean we should approach everyone with suspicion, but it does mean we should be patient. Watch how someone responds to pressure, how they treat people around them, and how they behave when things get tough. Emily's experience is a gentle warning. Don't let appearances fool you. True love shouldn't only feel good, it should make sense. A lifetime commitment is a serious step. Before making it, ask yourself, do I really know this person? Can we grow together through hardship? Though the road she walked was difficult, it gave her wisdom and strength. She learned that taking your time, asking the right questions, and knowing your worth are all vital when it comes to love. Her journey shows us that love must be built on something real, something strong, honest, and lasting.